Longlegs is a slow-moving locomotive of dread and doom, carried by its stunning sound design and unique cinematography. It's a movie that I intentionally held off on seeing, mostly due to the hype surrounding it. The marketing went hot and heavy, and though I was eager to see Nicolas Cage portray another classic villain, I was finally given the excuse to approach this movie objectively and post-hype during this series covering classic serial killer cinema. Quick note, I will be getting into some spoilers for the film, so continue at the risk of ruining the twists and turns of the plot. With that said, let's continue, shall we? Longlegs follows a semi-clairvoyant investigator, Agent Lee Harker, played by Maika Monroe, as she is brought in to use her intuitions to uncover clues on a cold case, pursuing a serial killer seemingly puppeteering families to kill each other. Notes and letters are left by the killer in Zodiac-style code that Harker is able to transcribe, that unravel to reveal a sinister game involving a glam rock-coated man who's undergone many botched facial surgeries to appear almost genderless. Calling themselves Longlegs and played by Nicolas Cage, they have willingly devoted their life to doing the devil's bidding. As the story reveals itself, we discover Harker's family is at the core of the plot, and we are shown the lengths her own mother will go to protect her daughter. The film had a modest budget of $10 million and went on to surpass Parasite as Neon Film's most successful outing, bringing in around $128 million. It was directed by Osgood Perkins, son of actor Anthony Perkins, who has been on a tear lately, already having 2 follow-ups since this film dropped in 2024, with The Monkey and The Keeper in 2025, and another film, The Young People, in post-production for release later this year. Dude's been working. Okay, so high level, zooming out to 30,000 feet and looking at this story, it's an odd one and probably shouldn't work. In a lot of ways, it doesn't for me. It dips its toes into a few different genres, but never quite commits to any one of them to feel organically of that style, if that makes sense. And the way it chooses to shift gears between its narrative choices felt a little clunky to me. It starts off engaging you like a puzzle box thinker, which I love, delivering clues to us, the viewer, as we attempt to add them up. What is the killer trying to say? Is there a pattern? In a world of true crime that we live in these days, and with homages to films like Silence of the Lambs and Seven, the movie draws you in this way, and then sort of betrays all that in a twist, turning the whole story on its head as sort of a Grimm's fairy tale of sorts, with a demonic doll maker making possessed dolls that entrance the fathers to kill their families and then themselves, leaving no clues behind. We then find out Agent Harker's mother, played by Alicia Witt, has made a deal with Longlegs the doll maker in order to save her own daughter, to be the devil's Trojan horse and deliver these Satan dolls to the families in the name of a church giveaway. This twist is all delivered by way of exposition dumps later in the film, and it barely worked for me. Now, in my opinion, the real twist of this film is how Oz Perkins and his crew took what is a somewhat mediocre low-budget horror concept and decided to treat the material like it was Hollywood high art. The collaboration between sound designer Eugenio Battaglia and composer Elvis Perkins, who is Osgood's brother, had their foot on the gas pedal of impending doom and fear here, both in what you heard and more often what you didn't. Battaglia would often let scenes play out in mostly silence, placing emphasis on textures like footsteps in the snow or creaking wood, drawing you in with anticipation and making you sit in it long enough to let your guard down and then hit you with the scary stuff. He used so many fun tools in his toolbox, like leaning into our doll maker's glam rock roots, with whispered messaging into an Amazonic microphone that would then be played in reverse. This was a technique called backmasking during the 70s and 80s satanic panic era of heavy metal, wherein singers were accused of hiding secret messages in their lyrics. Elvis Perkins' score never drew attention to itself, but was content in being so subtle and serving only fear to guide it throughout. If you watch this movie on low volume, you're cheating yourself out of half its fun. And holy moly, the camera work here. A few things stood out to me as being extremely effective throughout, starting with Mexican cinematographer Andres Arochi's use of wider lens and a deep depth of field. I saw a video recently on YouTube discussing how too many films in recent years have cheated things like budgetary constraints by blurring out the background using an effect called bokeh, or a shallow depth of field, where the background falls off and blurs out. We as a society are now somewhat trained to equate this bokeh to mean cinematic. Hell, it's even a named effect on our iPhones. Cinematographer Arochi traded out this effect and instead used selective lighting with the majority of the frames engulfed in darkness anytime he wanted to obfuscate things. Because where a shallow depth of field tells me as the viewer, don't worry about that stuff, focus on what I'm showing you. These wider lenses and deeper focus tell me I absolutely need to worry about everything, and I can't see it in the darkness. Which is how scary stuff happens in real life, right? Tapping into my caveman brain. I really enjoyed that. Also, the blocking and mise-en-scene of this film felt like horror-soaked Wes Anderson, which is something I never thought I needed to see till now. A consistent use of center framing our subjects with brilliant composition and a blatant lack of camera movement forces you to sit in moments you don't want to. Orochi apparently has a background in graphic design and live performance projection mapping, so the math of his compositions makes sense. Also, quick tip of the cap to set decorator Trevor Johnston and production designer Danny Vermette, who, given that extra depth of field I spoke to, were tasked with filling out these often mundane spaces like so many suburban living rooms and offices to make them come alive. Lastly, I'll say I could make a whole video on just the use of color and tone in this film, with warmer tones drawing you into scenes you can't feel safe in, and instead using the colder tones being your safe space to breathe a little bit. Some of the film's most chilling scenes are bathed in warm tungsten lighting while being mostly obfuscated in otherwise darkness. That's where the devil is. Such good horror work here. Now on to the performances. The performances were mostly muted overall, with our protagonist being borderline emotionless throughout. What this leads to, for me at least, is Agent Harker being more of a vessel, never imposing how to feel in each scene and letting the brilliant technical filmmaking take hold of my senses. The exception to that, of course, is Cage's take on Longlegs, who, like his turns in films like Face Off and Mandy, is allowed to go full throttle Cage here, and of course steals every scene he's in. Other than that though, a lot of the other performances were really muted and emotionless, and this is maybe why I've put so much emphasis on the technical sights and sounds of the film, as they were mostly tasked with the cues of making me feel anything. Speaking of that, with director Osgood Perkins saying that this is a movie about the lengths a mother will go to protect their children, I would have liked to have seen a little more out of Alicia Witt's character as Harker's mom. Now this is less of a critique on Witt's performance, and more so on the script giving her the opportunity to emote, as she is left in a trance-like state for most of the movie. It's obviously there on screen to an extent, but I've got to admit, I didn't really feel her motives until maybe the final moments of the film. The overall muted emotions of the characters perhaps robbed me of all the weight that I should have been feeling. Longlegs is a film that I'd compare to a middleweight boxer that's moved into the heavyweight division. It's hitting way above its weight class here. Remember, this is a low-budget horror, so do I rank it as such, or do I judge it on what it's aspiring to be? In that way, I'd put it in the pantheon of movies like Hereditary or Midsommar, which are not bad company to be in. In a different time, at this budget level of $10 million and with the somewhat hokey plot points, this could have easily been a cheesy box art film at your local video rental house. But it dared to be something greater, and in so many ways that matter most, it succeeded. Was Suspiria's ballet school murders that great of a concept? Dr. Brundle turning himself into a fly so revolutionary? Or is it sometimes that concept matters less than execution, and brilliant films can far surpass their premise? With that said, I'm giving this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm excited for a rewatch to see if its technical achievements and parlor tricks hold up over time. Well, that's it for me. Catch us next week for more of our serial killing series right here on Esoteric Cinema.